Hello everyone, let's start again. Okay, so now let's just do one more thing. Okay, sorry about that. Needed to do okay, so this is my okay, so let's go. So what we're doing today, we're writing our e-commerce fake data builder. I was thinking about this project a little bit, and yeah, I think I kind of like decided that I just want to go with a little bit simplifying the project and just making sure that it runs in the way and sort of like builds some of these things, so it doesn't need to be perfect in any form or way. So the plan for today is to generate a single day, right? So we do have like a data generator, and we can think of this way. So we have def, a little bit move things around. So if you have something like generate day, right, we would pass date, right? And then this generate day should be something where it would could be something like for like in range of the visits. We don't want to do anything what the is suggesting, but we do something like self generate visit, right? And this would be the DT of the visit, and maybe would want to pass the parameters about the visit, the visit itself. So what should be these parameters about the visit? And I think this is something what we need to think of or extract into, right? So first thing which comes into my mind is we need to do something like, okay, so generating a visit, we need to know what type of the user it is. So it's like a user type, right? And we discussed that the user type actually could be multiple ways, right? So if I go into our models and go here, I think I would want to say that, look, we have like class of user type, and then the user type could be like new user, which we don't nothing about. Then it can be returning user, which it's just like a user which returns. And finally we have registered user, right? Okay, so we have these sort of like a couple values available for us, and this is what we can use. Now, based on these values, we actually could figure out other things. So we will do something like that. So what we want to do is to pass user type, and then we want to start using a bunch of random operations. I think one good thing for us to have is to be able to have seeds, so the random would not be actually reproducible, and I think that is very important. So I think seed should be part of the scenario, right? So this should be coming somewhere from. So run scenario. So the first thing which you need inside the scenario, we want to have seed, right? And there is this sort of like a scenario params, and maybe this is enough, right? Because this is scenario params, so we could go get visits, so we could get def get seed, or actually we should just go with, you know, like a custom properties which we design, and then later we can figure out if we want the seed to be a part of the parameters or something else. So let's just go with, you know, like something like this. We say like, look, we do have property which is seed, right? And it should return whatever the value is, so self scenario params, and we want to get seed, right? And what we could do, if seed, so we want to return seed, if seed, else return random number, and let's say the random number is, now also what we also, so from numpy import random, right? And what we want to do here is this, you know, like random, and then no, so this is setting the seed, which we don't want to do. What we want to do here is sort of like random integer, right? And now if I would just go into here and I would say like, okay, so actually in this, I want to just run Jupyter lab. So let's start. Okay, so what I want to try to do is the following. So I would like to take import numpy as np. Nope, I misspell numpy as np and np.random random int, and it requires at least one, so one. So yeah, I think that's sort of like a good enough of the random distribution. So this would be our, and we actually can do so we would know which random we're using, so just import numpy as np. Perfect. And then we have this one up and ready, and he's basically saying to give it a seed from the parameters. So now we can say that the parameters actually also has a seed, which is, I said none, so we're just saying like, okay, so the seed, and we can say seed is a parameter that holds the seed for the random number generator. Perfect. So we have this one now available to us. So now let's get to the next thing. So we have a seed available to us. Now we want to generate a visit, right? And we're passing dt. So def generate a visit with dt. And now first, I think we want to specify what we are creating, right? So want to say what do you want to say? I mean, I I think the thing which we want to do we want to make it just, I think, okay, so for the simplicity, we just go very simple. But then in reality, would want to introduce a little bit more logic to that. We could say, let's, like maybe we have a finite list of the users, which we store somewhat locally in memory, and then sort of like we reuse those. The problem with this approach is that we might run out of the of the memory, and that's something what needs to be addressed accordingly, right? So maybe we don't want to actually do something like that. Anyway, we have a visit, so let's do this way. So user type mp random choice. And now the random choice is between, this is an example, so is between, so user type, perfect. New returning or user type is registered user, right? So now if the chance the user is new, let's say, is 30%, and the chance that the user is returning, let's say, is 10%. So what I mean by that is this, like we have like all the majority of users is new, and then the user, if it's in the eShop, most likely it will be registered user. So what's left will be 60%, right? So we have a user. Now, what we want to do as well, if user type is new, then we want to sort of like, introduce the, the chances for, or actually we should do the, the prediction for, right? So let's do the prediction for, what? For, as this, okay, so as we said, like how we build the visit. So we have a visit, right? So the visit will end up in, let's say, search, will end up in order, and let's say that's it, right? So we're doing very simple approach. It's basically just you visit, you perform a search, and then you order. So we could say like, okay, so 1% from everyone who visited, we have, like 40%, or no, actually, like, let's say people did actually came in and they did a search, right? So who actually visited. And then from the 60%, only 1% perform an order, right? So that's sort of like the idea. So now we just need to put those. So search predictions. And what we want to do, we want to build a map. We say like, okay, so the user type is new. There you go. So if the user type should be new user, it should be returning user and registered user. So we just go, so this is our choices. This is the p-value, and that's the thing. So the search prediction for the new user is 60%, for the returning user is 90%, and for, okay, so for the new user, let's say it has like 30% chance to search. Then for the 40. Then for the registered returning user, so the user already been in our site and now he's returning, and maybe his return and actually will be doing, and now the registered user will definitely coming to our site because like he knows, or maybe he just sort of like come by accident, right? So that might happen. So 90%. Now the prediction for search prediction, and now we go order prediction. So for the new user, it's, let's say, very low. So it's like 10%. Now for the returning user, let's say they actually came back once again and they're very likely to buy. And now for the registered user, again, it's like 90, like 90%. Well, not necessary. Maybe just user came to check the prices. So let's say here they came to, like increase into be like 60% that they actually would, would buy something. And then the registered users, I mean, they have like 80% that they would order something. Additionally, one thing we can add is user registered, right? And that, so not registered, but let's call it, registration prediction, right? Predictions. And right. So if the user type new, it's able, let's say it's like 50-50, it will register. If there is a returning user, it will have, like 80% chance of, of being returning user. And then if it's registered user, it's basically has 0 chance to register again. And then we can add additional thing is, no, we don't add anything else. So this is sort of like what we have now. So we have these predictions available for us as well. So now, and actually these things we should put directly into, and we should go this way as well. So user type predictions, right? And those should be exactly like that. Now what we want to do additionally, we actually want to take all of that, and that should become our scenario parameters, right? So this is our right. So user type prediction is a parameter that holds the prediction for the user types. Yes. Right. 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 So we do have these things available for us. So now what we do is just like, okay, so let's generate the visit. So now the first thing which we do is we say like, okay, look, we do have user types, right? And now we want to get their predictions. So what we can say is when we have something like that, or actually when we have something like that, so we could say, let's put those in here. Also, let's go to our modules and let's grab this one in here and put that as well in here. So now if I would run the code and I would say user types keys, and I would say user types values, I'm basically getting what I need. I just need to make sure that they are lists, right? So now I could say, hey, user type predictions. So right in here, we could say random between self scenario params keys and self scenario params user type prediction values. Perfect. So now we have a chance of the user type to be available for us, right? And let's go in. So if now what we want to do, we want to get the prediction. Okay, so this is what I do not know. So this is clear about the predictions of those, but how do I get a single how do I get a single prediction number? Okay, let's try to write. T and then the user type. So this is the user agent. And if we want to introduce the user type in here, we should add it here, and we'll have a so just go into the visits. We say like, look, you have a user type which is string, and now as well when you're creating a visit, you need to also specify user type, which, yes, you need to specify a user type, and the user type needs to be user type, which you specify. So I could actually add it in here. This is user agent. This is created at, right? So we do have these things. Now we have this done. So this is our visit. So now we just do add the visit to the database, and then we commit, right? And that's sort of like the visit is generated. Actually, what we can do, we can commit after a single day. Right, so visit is added and it says committed. Now the next thing is let's generate the search. So def generate search self and then visit. Do you want to pass this visit? Sure, why not? We don't have really search object yet, but let's figure out how we would gonna do something like that. So actually the more important thing is like, how would I, okay, so okay, chat OpenAI using NumPy, how to get prediction for a value when providing prediction value, how to get, I don't know if that makes sense what I wrote, most likely it doesn't. So slope, intercept, predict, input. Yeah, I think I don't know how to ask the question. That's my downside. Let's figure out that. Okay, so I do have search prediction. Okay, so we do the search. I have following variable. I would like to write Python script which would call to search based on user type and its prediction value. Hey, enormous one. What I'm building today So I wanted to do some analytics over MySQL database. Sort of like a particular example would be an analytical sort of like ETL setup on sort of the e-commerce website. Now, because I don't have an e-commerce website, nor I want to have e-commerce website, what I decided to do is that I decided to fake the data. And I want to add as much, probability as possible. So what I'm working on, I'm creating this sort of like a project called Alligator or Generator. And inside this folder, we do have these scenarios. And currently I'm working on the first static scenario where this is sort of the idea. You start a scenario initializes its database. It's then sort of like sets the seed, either gets it random or, gets it from the parameters. And then the scenario is running. And the scenario has a start date and end date. So in this case, this is only like 10 days. And then for every day, it's sort of like, this is like my previous code. So for every day, it would run, so self generate day, where you would pass, where you would pass a day in it. So dt equal day. So all of this code is not necessary anymore. You basically call generate day. And now for each day, you kind of have a number of the visits. So because this is a static model, the visits are very static for each day. And then inside this generate a visit, you basically now what I'm doing is sort of like, okay, so the visit came from what user type? And I do have these user type, new user, returning user, registered user. And each of these users has a probability to be, right? So this is 100% and like one of the probability for them to be selected. So using the numpy random choice command, I actually, like getting the user type out of those. And this is how I get the visit. Now, the next thing which I want to do, I want to basically say, like self generate search, because my plan is that I do have a visit, a search, and an order, right? And now depending on your user type, you will have a different percentage value to get to the next stage. And this is what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build a very simple e-commerce platform where I do have the sort of like, like a different things, and then I will try to generate this data set, and we'll use that to sort of like talk about the analytics and use that to, like sort of like pulling the stuff out of that. So that's my general idea, what I'm trying to build here. I hope that explains it. And this is sort of like my example. I do have, these users, I do have their predictions, and now it's just amazing how it doesn't give me any I asked GPT to basically help me generate, and it's incapable, or I am unable to actually answer, like ask a proper question of what I want it to be generated. So I guess we'll just brute force it, or unless you know how to write something like, like if you, so I do have like a user type. It's not like a user, but okay, I think I have an idea how to get a random number from 0 to 1 in NumPy. Okay, so this will be a random number. Okay, so now I think what I can do, because we have now a visit user type, I could say self. Yeah, I agree. So self scenario params user So I want to do is sort of like search predictions, right? And the search predictions is a dictionary, right? And I do have the values for those. So I could say search prediction of the user type. So this will return me the prediction of, or the value between where is the thing? So if I go there, it will return either 04, 06, or 09. So now if I get back into my code, I should just say, if this value is higher than np-rand, then generate a search. So if this generates, like 0.1, and this is a registered user, it will generate a search. And we can actually test this out. So instead of generating a search, we're passing a visit. So we can say something like that. Self log info. Is that correct? No, it's not self log info, it's self app log info. Yeah, and we will be generating search for user type, like a certain user type. All right, and that would be it. And we will be okay. So first, let's nuke our database. Just delete that. Perfect. Now let's run the code and see, will it fail? Which of course most likely will fail, but let's see. Yes. So random state choice must be one-dimensional or integer. So I guess I was lied when I was using the np-random choice. Okay, so we just go into this and let's see what. So a size and replace. Shuffle. Okay, so random choice. And then the P. Okay, so what this would return then in my case. Let's say we have these keys in here. Oops. In here, and then we have in here. Is the value. And here we have number 3. Okay, so we want to have it as list. So it returned this one, but if I'm not passing and I think it just returned me new user. So it should be fine, right? So I just need to make sure that I'm converting the code into list. So in here, we're just converting that into list. And here into list. And then 124, this should be it. Okay, let's see now. So 124. And why are you complaining? Because this is a choice and this is a choice. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, this is I think the boring part of the engineering or just writing code is what should work doesn't work for whatever reason there. And now I just need to figure out why. Okay, so let's try to... Oh, I don't have a book prepared for myself. Fine. Just get the values in here and see what we are getting. Okay, so this is numbers and this is those. So this is what was I expecting. Yeah, could be. I don't know. But in this example, it's also floats. See, 03, 01, 06. So that's sort of like exactly the same code which I had over there. Then if I run and if I like print user type, this oh, I know what I'm missing. I know, no. Yes, this is what I'm missing. The second, I'm passing this as a second argument. I need to pass that as a p argument, which is not a second argument. That was the problem. Here you go. So we run our, you know, like, correct. So exactly, yeah, you're absolutely right. So we run our code, and now inside the code we see like, okay, so first thing first. So first we can actually see right here, if I would select from the visits, I do have a bunch of visits created. Correct, a bunch of visits created, and all of these visits now has the value either registered user, new user, registered new user, registered new user, registered returning user, and a bunch of those things, and sort of like a bunch of registered users is in there. Now, another thing, what we do have is that we do have the generate search. So generating search for the registered new user, and then registered. So this is sort of like these couple cases where I assume a different user came, which didn't generate a search, right? So this one didn't generate, this one did, this one didn't, this one did. So, and we also have returning. We have a bunch of in here. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Okay, so now I think what I want to do is that I want to introduce, you know, like, so, okay, so now we're getting slowly there. Okay, so we do generate a search, and now if you generate a search, you actually can perform an order, right? You actually can perform. So let's do dev generate order. And again, that will be, I would want to pass here a visit and a search, because I might need a search object here as well. So for now, we just get search is of none. Do self generate search, which is would have a visit and would have, or not search, sorry, will generate order, which will have visit and search, and just go in generating order, visit type. And what I want to do also, I want to take this one, I want to put it in here, and what we want to do here, we want to sum the user prediction, search prediction, or order prediction, again, visit user type, if it's if my value which I have is higher than the value you gave me, then proceed with the search. What I want to do, I want to say here and say generating order, so no order. for user type. And I also want to say here else no search for user type. So now I actually would see, and then we can get these things out. Okay, let's clear our database once again. Now let's not search for the dependencies and let's run. So the data, not the data, but the logs are generated. So the search and the generated, no search for the registered user, generating the, so because no search for the registered user, then of course there will be no order generated. Now the order for the new user, no order, no search for the new user, generating order and search. That's good. Okay, perfect. So we have a data, we have something very simple available to us. Now the things which I want to do additionally is I want to just add these two models, right? So we do have visits. Let's have another, let's have search. And we just say like, hey, you know, like the, we visited. So let's go very simple. So visit ID, oops, misspelled. So visit ID is an integer. Now the user agent we can get from the visit ID, the user type we can get as well, and we just add when this visit was created. So we just need to pass DT when it's created, and we also need to pass a visit as an object visit. And then whenever we're creating search, we say, look, your visit ID is visit.id, right? And then yes, I'm not using the ORM here. I'm not using, you know, the actual objects, because that's not the purpose which I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to sort of like generate a fake data for me. So we do have a search done for us. Now the next thing is we want to add an order. And of course we need to change the name of the table. So searches, orders, we have ID, we have a visit ID. Do we want to have a visit ID? We can always get back to it. No, let's make it very clear. And then we have like a search ID here. So this will be a search, because we assume that orders cannot be created without search, which is actually a very bad assumption, but yeah, let's keep it this way. We can actually add those in here. And now we're saying that, okay, so you need to pass search ID here, and the search ID will be, so search ID will be equal search ID. And actually let's do exactly the same here, because I'm assuming that we have a visit object, but what if we don't have a visit object? What if it's just like a value of the visit ID? Visit ID, orders, order, searches, search. Okay, SQLite cleared. Let's now implement searches. Okay, so if we're generating a search, then we're saying, okay, search is, let's import first of all search and order objects. Now we get into run scenario, get visits, generate visit, generate search. For the search, we'll have search created, where visit ID is equal visit ID, and the T is created DT, because like we passed this in here, so we can reuse them as well. And now, actually no, let's put a DT here as we always pass it. So our DT is equal DT, and visit is is equal visit. So we have dt and the visit, and this will be dt here, and we can have it. dt is date of when the, like event is happening. And then now we're generating an order. We want to pass dt, visit, and search. So dt, visit, and search. And now order is equal order. Create it. We've passed dt equal dt, and the search id equal search id. We're not using visit, but this is totally fine. And right. And when we go to the order, we actually already predicting that we want to create an order. So what we need to do finally is we need to go self app add order. Then we also want to do is self add search, and we'll have self add.visit. And when we're doing generate visit and we're done for a single visit, we basically committing. In other words, we're writing into database. So now if I would write the image, it's failed. Very good. So let's go into the visit and we say search and search ID, created search ID. And do we have a search ID? That's the, oh, there's not, it's order. It should be order object. My bad. Perfect. So now if we're getting into database and we're showing show tables, we do have orders, visit, and search. So if we do select star from visits, we do have a bunch of visits happened. If we do go and say orders, we do have 22 orders happen, and we have searches. We do have 35 searches. So this is our, and this is interesting, the visit ID is actually empty where the search ID is not empty. So we need to fix this one before we can get into further. So if I go into generating the search, visit ID is created. Visit ID. Oh. Is because I need to add visit first. Right. And now let's try again. So now if I run stuff, and now if I say, okay, yes, now the visits actually has searches. And orders. Perfect. Now let's say before, yeah, I think we can finish here. We do have like an initial data set, so we can actually now start doing some analysis on top of that data. Okay, so let's get back into, pandas read SQL Lite. Okay, let's try this. So if we go to our labs, so for the connection string, actually I think I need to specify the path of a database. So scenario enter, where is our scenario? And here, create a database, and for the database we use the environments, and that's our path. I'm struggling because I'm trying to figure out the way how I want this to be available to me. Because if I'm in here, right, that's what I was thinking of, or at least on this matter. Right, okay, so this is my path to the where the database is, and this database is there, but my Jupyter script is right here, which is outside. So okay, so I need first, what I need to do, actually need to stop the Jupyter notebooks. I need to get directory out, and I need to create the start Jupyter notebooks once, or Jupyter Labs once again. So now when the Jupyter Labs is running, I actually can go into the Jupyter and open my code. And now let's actually start a new one. And now import pandas as PD. And we also can do import numpy as np. Right, so now the next thing what we want to do is we want to connection SQL, and now this will be into one directory out data, and then so one directory out data SQLite and test DB. What we want to do here, we want to say show tables, so we want to see what tables do you see, and we want to basically as div head to print. Okay, SQLite, I'm missing import. I'm happy you do. So SQLite free. And it fails. Of course it fails. Why did it fails? Here, show. Okay. Select one. Okay, I'm getting the results. Okay, select star from visits. Oh, look, it do see visits, orders. Do see orders, and then finally searches. I do see searches. That's good. Okay, so okay, so what do you want to see? Okay, so before we do any of that, let's stop this one. What I want to do, I actually want to, so right now my generation was running for only 10 days, where I did had a predefined number of visits. And sorry, I'm back on Rob, is these visits 5, right? So the visits was 5. Now what I want to do, I want to change that little bit. So I want to say np random rand int, and I want the visits would be from self, and I want to take, yeah, so I will go walk over. I just want to write things, and then I will explain what I'm trying to do here. And then rand int, just give me an example. You want a value, so 1, no, not 1. Let's say we want 100, so 81. Yes, okay, so I want to have minimum of 5 visits. So this is let's call it min visits. So min number of visits. And what I want to have, I want to fact visit factor, which is 10, right? So I want to have the minimum number of visits 5 and then factor of 10. So basically is multiplication of visits to half total. So now if I go to the visits right here, so let's call this one, we don't need this one, so we call min visits. And then what we want to have here, want to have self scenario parens is visit factor. So whatever that value will be here, multiplied by minimum number of the visits. So if we have, and let's go a little bit split those. So we have this value and we have this value, and we picking the maximum value of this, and then we're iterating from those. So now we'll be getting the number of visits starting from 5 going into 50 maximum, but that needs to be selected. Okay, so let's delete this one. Now the next thing which we want to do, we want to, yes, delete that, it's fine. We want to generate data up to, let's say, March 1st, right? So we're generating for like data for 2 months. Well, no, let's include April 1st. So we're generating the data for like 3 months. Let's see how that will run. I mean, the first one's pretty fast, but now intruding randomness. So let's see how that will go. It goes decently. I think I want to add some timer or something in here so I could see which date it's generating. Wow. This was fast. Okay, so now if we go and say like, okay, so how many, so now let's go to the analytics, right? So visits. So we have in total 2,232 visits. So the first usual question you will get is like, okay, how many visits per day do we have, right? So you take select star from visits. You have the ID, user type, and create it. And what you do, you can say, hey, please created add, and then use this, and then count a number of visits from visits and group by created add. And that's sort of like we have a dates and then we have visits. Here you go. Exactly. For the next one, I will give you a little bit more time to answer. Now, the thing what I want to do, okay, so analytics. Perfect. Now what I want to do, because I do not remember this one, give me example of matplotlib to display data over multiple metrics and dimensions. Let's try this one. Yeah, it's not what I want, but whatever. While it's writing here, let's actually tell him what we want. I have following data set. I would like to display it using matplotlib. Okay. That's a lot of writing. Okay, so we need to import matplotlib. I hope we have that already inserted. So yes, perfect. And now we want just to go I think we should be good with this one. So if we go in here with def draw df and we pass df, oops, and we put our code in here. So data frame created, df count, so let's call it as cnt, right? So this is our count, cnt. Let's register this function. And now let's draw df and we pass our data frame. Ah, come on. Oh, because you don't know what the count is because I didn't rerun the code. Ta-da! So this is our graph, right? It basically indicates a number of the users we are getting. So sometimes we're getting a very low number of the users and sometimes we're getting like close to the 50, right? And this is sort of like count over time, which kind of makes sense. Now the question is, thank you. Now the question is like, okay, so that's good. We know now what we want to do. We want actually to see our user distribution per user type. So how we would do that? I will give you a couple seconds to answer this. Yes, visits by user, exactly. We just add user type. And we group by user type. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's the user type, but you were close by. Yeah, no worry about that. Okay, so how do we add... I already have data grouped by... Yeah, I don't like this one. I'm not very good at matplotlib. And I just don't want to waste time analyzing this thing. So, So now if I draw that, it's just not really... Okay, is there... Yeah, we usually have a tooling for that back at work, and now I'm just trying to sort of like get back to the roots and try to do. So they're suggesting me to run this group by, but I don't need that because I run that and it's already sort of like grouped by. Oh, I see. I got it now. Yes, it's all good. I understood now what he's trying to do. So basically, in this implementation, we have this additional things where we need to create this grouped part, and then we run this on this grouped part for each, for each of those. And this is like CNT. Yes, this is the CNT value, and we don't need this one anymore. So now, that's ugly. Let's try to do additional thing, which is what's suggesting is converting the data. Now it looks better. Doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I think you're right. That would have helped, but this is sort of like a different thing, right? And now we actually see the difference of, like, and this is sort of like the thing. So if we say like, okay, so usually in the analytics you say like, oh well, this one is not interactive, so this is not really nice. So we could say we want where the user type is unequal to new user, or actually is equal to new user, right? Sorry. So this is the new user graph now, and basically shows that the new user is, we usually have around like, like from what's like 1 something to, like to 17 up, and is sort of like how it distributes. And then if we go register it user, then we have the registered users, they coming a little bit more often. So this is cool. Now I think another thing which is interesting and very often is asked is the following. Is you could say like, okay, we do have, so this is visits, right? So this is visits from visits. But what I want to have, I want not only to have visits, I also would want to have searches and other things. Or yeah, that's a funneling thing. But let's go with the something simple, right? So so for the visits, we would like to join them against searches, where visits ID is equal searches visit ID, right? So now if I would remove this group by, just for the time being, and we'll add the start in here, left join. What, you don't support? Shoot. Good point. Thank you. Nope. Okay, yes. So that worked. You're absolutely right. So what we want to have, so this is visits, this is searches. So we want to have visits, we want to have searches. So we want to have all columns displayed to us. And this is what we have. We have the visits, and then we have, like searches. So what we can do now, we can say like, okay, so I want to get visit created at as date. I also want to have visits user type, and then I also would like to have count of, like usually you would do visits ID, so that would be, but yeah, I want to have the visits ID. In some cases, what you would want to have, you would want to run distinct VID, visits ID, because if you would be in this situation, and we can add that, where a single visit can have multiple searches, you want to count only a single visit once, right, as visits. Oops. And then we also want to have count distinct search ID as searches. And then we can group by the created at the user type. Created at, here you go. And now we have this data, right? So now what we can do, we can say like, okay, so we have a date here, we have a date here, we have it grouped by the users, we want to have date here, we want to have visits. Can I plot here searches? and just do line style, something like that. Would that work? And then the label name is the name. And right, so if I go now for this, nope. Let's then go on the simple thing again. I will not pretend I know what I'm doing with this tool. Say, okay, so this is O, this is minus, we remove this one, and we run this one. Here you go. So this will be the searches over time, right, against for all the users. And just to give the better visibility, if I would run this now again, this would be our visits, right? So as you can see, visits is much... Is it visits? No, I screw up again something. This is visits. Oh, I need to rerun this one, and then I need to run this one. So this is... No, I mean, thank you. Data analytics is interesting. Data engineering is interesting, but this is basically how you would... Okay, so let me do something else. Like, I'm not feeling comfortable with this one, and it's sort of like, it's fun, but it's in the real life, what you would be doing, you would go to... you would go to the spreadsheets, right? And what you would do something like that. You would go into your tool. Yeah, I need to learn this one eventually. So let's just do the same thing, which I wanted to do because I just want to give you an example what I'm trying to build. So if I take this fields from example and I would run the query here, I'm getting the result. So now what I can do, I can say copy this all query and its result to data CSV, right? And data CSV, now it's done. So now if I go into my project, I would have the data CSV in here, which was just created. So now I could say, you know, like file, import, upload from my computer. And where is my projects? My projects, generator, data CSV, open, import. So this is now the table, right? So now what I can do, I can select all of those. I could say, okay, data, do I want to pivot? Yes, I want to pivot. So insert no, data extraction, no, create filter, no, insert pivot table. Yes, insert pivot table. And we say like, okay, so for the rows, I want to have dates. For the column, I want to have users. And then my values is visits. Or I could select this one and do insert chart. I'm trying to figure out what I wanted to do. No, not this one. Yeah, I think I know what's happening in here. Okay. So what we want to do is searches per visit, right? So this is our formula, and that's usually will be searches divided by visits, and that's sort of like we're getting the value out of that. And this is usually considered to be a conversion rate to some degree, like conversion rate between a search and a visit. And now if I take this, and this, and I say insert pivot table, and I would say like, okay, you have your, this is not correct. Okay, this should be correct. So insert, insert date. For the columns, we want to use the user type. And for the filters, we want to use the search by. And we want to, oops, sorry, not filters. And for the values, we want to have this values in here. Now, when I select all this, I actually can do insert chart. And I know this chart doesn't look very nice, but it should actually represent, oops. I think I should, right, and then, so this should represent each users. So if I would go into, for example, here, and I would say like, hey, let's look at the user type, and let's only look at the returning users. So we now see that the returning user, and now for this one, we want to customize that to be vertical axis, min value is 1 and max value is 1. Okay, let's put it 1.1, and let's put it minus 0.1. Minus 0.1, something like that. So now we actually have a little bit better visibility. So what we have now is basically we see how the, why we have the grand total in here, doesn't matter. We actually see how, you know, the conversion rate is actually building out for this returning user. And that's usually is something what you would want to do. Additionally as well, you know, like what they often would ask is sort of like, okay, what is the, you know, like the difference between, am I showing everything? Yeah, let's put everything. So they would sort of say like, okay, what's the difference between all of 3 users? And this is like a very bad graph to show. So what we want to do, we want to put it into the stacked, something like that. So it's not really visible that well, but the idea is following. This is your distribution for each different user, right? So you see like on different days, like the sort of like how the data is different. So for example, on this particular day, on the 15th, we had only new user and registry user performing a search. No returning users actually did a search in here. At least that's how it looks like. Or I'm missing something with the data. Yeah, and this is sort of like, you know, the things which you can do. Now the final thing which of course we can add here is, let's go and left join orders O on. And how do we have our orders displayed? Orders limit 10. We do have a search ID. So it's search ID equal orders search ID, right? And now here we can, see, we also can say count distinct orders ID as orders. That's it. And now we're having the orders. So now if someone would ask the question, we know that on the 1st of January, new users did run 12 was visiting the site 12 times, we have like 5 searches initiated and 0 orders done, while the registered users perform, like 27 orders and 27 searches and had 25 orders. Now there is a smarter way to, okay, let's ask, because I really don't know. Can you generate me matplotlib graph which would show funnel transition per user type from visit to order, having following data frame? There you go. Let's the thing do this stuff. Okay, so I will just copy paste whatever is in here. I will just replace this part with the new part of the code. We already have a data frame available to us. We do have the fields. Let's run stuff. Why are you angry? Date. And then I don't want Diffie grouped. So I don't want just some. I think this is incorrect. Count funnel. No. Okay, why are you failing? Data time 6 doesn't support the sum operator. So should I specify the stages? Right, here you go. This is what I wanted to do. But this is a sum of everything from what we see. So if we look at the, for example, like registered users, right? So registered users, this is basically sort of like a sum value of the total visits, then how much they perform the searches and how much the orders. So we have this sort of like a drop down difference. And how to get it on day by day. Okay. Let's try this. Ugh. No, looks ugly. Yeah. Anyways, so what you also can answer things is like, okay, which day we had the most orders per visit, right? So select star from, well, actually would be something like, so if we're looking per day, we don't need users anymore. Let me just take this one out. And we could say like, hey, okay, I want to have a date. I want to have, so don't user. So the question is, which day had most orders per visit done, right? So that's the question. So we create it as date. We have visits and we have orders. That's the two things which we will need to have. We're counting those. We need to join all of those together. We don't need the users anymore. So this is our initial data set. Now we can do select date, and we want to do orders divided by visits. Yes, and this will be order as order per visit from, and this our subquery. Let's call it T. Let's try to run it. And then let's order by visit descending. I think that's the query. Nope. How do I specify division? It's not, it's all good visits. Here you go. So tab number 1. So on January 2nd, absolutely all orders converted into visits. Let's double check. Select star from orders where created at is 2024-01-02. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orders. And how many visits we do have? Visits. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 visits. Cool, right? Now, another cool thing which I want to show is about this part. So user agent from visits. So now let's say we want to do the following thing. We want to know which user agent or what type of, like browser or operating system or, like in this case, browser people are using to get, like to sort of like use our website. And the way how we can do that is by like extracting the information from the user agent. User agent is the thing when you like running the like using the browser to just navigate through the pages. It's basically has the user agent and information, and it's usually contains the operating system, your browser version, and some additional information about it. How to extract Windows or Mac from, how to extract device, desktop, mobile, tablet from user agent in SQL, because I definitely don't know, right? And there will be some sort of like right, I don't really care. Right, oh, that's actually pretty simple. So it basically says that you just need to search for the words like iPad, right? And this will be the mobile or tablet. So let's try that. So if we go into our, where was our SQL? If you go into our SQL, actually let's, that looks not good. So let's put this in here. Let's copy this from here. So now if we can take this part and we say like, okay, so we do have a date and we do have this part and this should be fine. So now what we just need to do, we just need to grab this information from here. Let's put it in here and just let's grab all of that, put it in here. I think just for the simplicity, what we want to do, we will just remove the date. Usually we add a date, but now it's just like too much information for us in here. So we just remove that. So what we want to have here, we want to have the group by the user type. And then this will be the orders and the device type. Okay, no such column visits. Again, I didn't, so visits. What? Not fun. So it basically says that it's enabled to identify any device type, which is stupid because it should identify at least something. Okay, let's go just orders and visits. And let's see how much we have orders and how much we have visits. So orders, visits, and then let's remove the order by. Now actually we do have a bunch of in here. I guess this is because I had the integers, and when you dividing integer from integer is getting, yeah, it's whatever, doesn't matter. But this is how you would basically extract information about what distribution is, right? And what we see here is that actually majority of your users, so this is what is interesting, right? So majority of your users is actually coming via desktop. However, if you say, still, I need to do that. So orders divided by visits as order per visit, and I want to float, would that work? Nope. How to cast an SQLite. Oh, I know how to do that. What I'm doing. So I actually can do something similar. I can remove this one, right? And now what I can say, like, hey, pandas, data frame, orders per visit is actually equal data frame orders divided by data frame visits. Let's kill this visits, and now we do have the values in here. So this is what's interesting, right? Like your ratio between the user agent is around, like 58, like 48, 48, 47, right? So it doesn't, I was kind of like expecting that maybe the mobile has a bigger conversion rate, but that's not really the true. All the users have like basically like a very similar conversion rate across all the devices. So that's really not the case, right? So the device in this case, at least in our random distribution, didn't really add it, like too much of the things. However, if I take this data, and I would add it into, yeah, it doesn't matter. What I wanted to do, there is a way to, again, like, because I would need to think about that, how to do that, but there is a way how you can do is basically like calculate the total percentage value from the total. Maybe I can do that. So total would be df visits sum. Would that work? So what is the total value now? Okay, so I do have this is total value. So now if I take and I would divide from this, would this work? Yeah. So what we see now is that the orders, like this has changed the picture, right? We see that even if orders per visit is equally distributed across different device types, we do see that the desktop has actually the most orders available to it if we look at all the like visits which we accumulate. And for that reason, it would make sense to sort of like improve our desktop experience, if you like, to basically like see these sort of things. Yeah. And that's kind of it. Now, I think what I wanted to go further is I want to add a little bit more different things in here. So I want to add things like, like we can have like a multiple orders per single visit, or we can have an orders which doesn't have like a search data attributed. And then like the question remains sort of like, how do you do these sort of like analysis things and the things like that? Oh, another thing which we can extract as well is the following. Is actually we can take, so we have a device type. Let's take user type from visits, right? And then let's close this one out and then remove those, and let's group by, and we don't need to have this. We can just say this. Count everything as visit. And now let's group by device type and group by the user type. And then we don't need to do any of these, just run stuff. So, right. So this is another interesting thing. So when you're looking into those, you actually can see the distribution between the users and device types. And what you can see is, for example, is that your registered users is actually mainly on your desktop, right? So all the registered users is on the desktop, while, and also the new users, right? Only like, yeah. But that's sort of like another thing. Again, because we're generating the data doesn't really show reality. In reality, the things would look differently, and if we want to mimic the reality, we need to like generate the data mimicking reality as much as possible. But that's sort of like another thing. So again, like this would say like, okay, so we do have the returning users, and like again, like if we go into something like visits, so visits and then some visits, and this is from total, oops, data frame, is it? Yes. And again, visit. Yeah, so this is sort of like from total, we see the numbers, right? So the new users, like everyone is using the desktop in my data set. And let's actually put it, yeah, so the full data set, so we would see. Yeah, and returning users with the tablet is just like very small amount of the people who is coming. In general, like no one uses tablet these days. I think the era is more or less going to an end. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's get status. So let's commit our code. We have a working static example, which is creating visits, searches, and orders. And let's push this one. So, do you have any questions, Enormous One? Oh, thank you very much. I saw, like you've been active and then sort of like silently slow down, and I wasn't sure if that's anything is interesting for you. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. Sorry, my my experience with the graph visualization is a little bit what's the English word, is a little bit bad. I think that's what I'm trying to search. So let's do something interesting, like what. So I'll just show you what I'm trying to say, and then okay, so we do have let's go into right here. We do have the visits, orders. Do we have searches? So this is the thing which I wanted to have. We do have this one, and then let's put, so there is, let's remove date from this one, and let's remove this from this one. Visit, searches, orders. Okay, so this is our data set. So this is what I think these days is cool, and this is something what I'm working with this other project which I'm doing, but it's sort of like, anyway, so, and they are a little bit connected. So GPT, you are data analyst. We have following data set. Please describe me a funnel of orders for this data set. And this is what having. So this is the conversion rates, right? So visit to search, search to order, visit to order. So this is all metrics which we have. And this is, there you go. You see, I told you there is a math somewhere. So this is your conversion rate, like 48.3. Registered users has 89, 78, and 70. And then returning users has 58, 62. So for example, a returning user is visits rarely compared to the registered user, but if it's you visit, it's sort of like, no, its order rate is also very small. The new user has the smallest one, and then visit to order, so like this is the order, then again, like it's a different one. Yeah, so visit to search rate is about 41%. New visits who visit platform go on top to perform a search, right? Of those new users who search, around 9 make an order. And then visit to order, overall only 3% of the users who visit the platform completes the order. I think this is, so this is search to order is not really true. What that actually is, it's basically the visit to search visit, order searches, order visits. Oh no, that's actually what it is, yes. So it's completely right. Then the returning users have the different things, and then the overall funnel summary, highest conversion rates, registered users have the highest conversion rates across all the stages, indicates they are the most valuable segment. Yes. And then improvement opportunities, there's a significant drop off from visits to searches and searches to orders for the new users, strategies like personalization, recommendation, targets, that's basically the things. And then engagement focus, that's the thing. So those things I would not rely so much on, but these things is actually accurate. So yeah, so this is what I should have done to look a little bit more professional than what I'm actually look like, but yeah, but I can do it now. And you haven't seen, like, look, you see how amazing I am. So now, one thing which I want to show is, so these metric types is amazing. They show a very interesting information. At the same time, they can be very misleading. Let me introduce something in here. So I will try to do onion all, select user type, test user. Now it has one visit as visits. It has one searches as searches, so visits as searches, and it has one order as orders, right? And that should be it. No, right. I need to add this as a string, as user type. Perfect. Now look, I take the same data and I will say do same analysis, do summary analysis only for this data set. So while it's going, I will try to explain what I'm saying by that. So what this will say is that, like, hey, you know, like your test user has actually the best ratio available to it. But the thing is, like, it doesn't really matter because the quantity of how many visits that did is 1, right? So it sort of like doesn't matter. So looking at those rates is useful, but without having a quantity, it's actually useless, right? So you need to have a quantity to be able to look at these ratios, and when the quantity is reaching a certain point, then it's only worthwhile looking into that data. So yeah, so the test user is the highest conversion rate, and that's the thing, like why, like the data which I provided, you know, like didn't really indicate that there is something wrong with it. And let's add here additionally, you know, sort of visits. And now if I would take this data set again and then say run analysis again for this one, so with this one was like highest conversion rate is for the test user, and then, you know, strong engagement registered users. Now if we go with this one, I actually only asked for the overall insights. I should, I guess, ask for the overall insights. Total visits, returning users. Okay, here you go. This is what I like. So highest performing segment is registered users have the highest conversion rates across all funnels outside of the test user segment, indicates that they are most engaged available, right? Special case for the user, the test user segment shows one conversion, but with the only one visit. This is likely due to specific testing conditions or controlled experiment and not indicates typical user behavior. So this is impressive. That's what I'm gonna say about the ChatGPT, like being able to say that, hey, look, this is something off stuff. And yeah, so I guess what I was trying to say is that yes, these metrics is great, but also don't forget to use these metrics because they are all important when you're making a decision about the data. Now, if we're looking at the data, one thing which is, you know, like also would be useful is for example, if I look at the visits, that's the information which I have, right? I have the registered user and the timestamps, but all of them is at zeros, right? So if you want to do some sort of like an hourly analysis, you would need to include a time here. Whenever you have time here, and you, for example, have time inside the visits and orders, right? You actually can run the analysis to calculate how much time does it take for the user to come into your page and actually perform a buy action, right? Like what's the time between a search and the buy, and you can identify the funnels where the users is struggling or do some other things in there. Additional things which you can do which I'm not doing in here. You sort of like could introduce the sort of like an additional product information in here, so you actually could do the analysis of what products is mostly bought, and sort of like, you know, like we don't have a value of these orders, like all of these orders are same value, right? Because they just have a number that the order did happen, but we don't know what value of the order is. Oh, actually we can do that, right? So let's get back to order, generate an order, and then for the created, let's add order total, which is column, not integer. I want to have double. Yeah, I think double is fine. Double. I believe I need to provide precision to it. So SQL Alchemy double data type example. So okay, let's go with the, where's my code? Let's go with the double air precision 2. Would that be okay? So let's delete this one. Now whenever we're creating the refactor, whenever we're creating an order, we have the order total random number and digits fixed len. Let's go that we basically want to have 5 digits and we divide that by 100. So we would take 2 digits for the cents, and then we'd take, you know, like 5 digits of the order. So like our things can cost like from 100. Actually, our things can cost from, yes, can cost from $100 to, yeah, from $100 to like $999. Okay, so let's try to generate. Oh, that worked. That's unexpected. And now if I say select from orders, I already have a prices in here. All right, so the orders is already generated. So now if we go into, you know, like we have all of these things in here, which is great. But now what we can introduce some total, what's the field name? Order total as total, right? And as total, we can drop this one out. This is not interesting anymore. So now we do have the visits, and we can also add total. And now, for example, we see that wow, registered users just like exploded with the total, like with 9,000 and 34,000, and this is like 440,000. Wow. Well, it's kind of like makes sense. It's got like 1,000. Okay. So now what we also can do here is we can do like total per visit. So we do have total divided by the visits. And now we need to add this. I'll just actually would just display all data frame. Yeah. So total per visit basically says that the registered users is spending $361 compared to, you know, like new user, when user is only spending like $13 per order, and then returning user spends 153 orders per, you know, $153 per order. So that sort of like indicates the distribution between the value. And again, that's just proof that registered users is more valuable to this use case, which is really cool. So this is like total per visit. What about total per orders? And this is what is interesting else, right? So total per orders is averaging around equally, but because of the, you know, like amount of the visits, amount of the searches, you know, like amount of the orders from search, that's sort of like all declining into the finally giving the order. So even if all the users is, you know, performing the well, still the registered users is kind of like the most valuable because they are returning. And at the end of the day, you know, this is good to have, but at the end of the day, you're actually counting the total amount of money you're generating. And this is sort of like your, you know, like your key metric, right? Like how much revenue you generate. And then, yeah, created ad as date. Let's go here as created ad. Right, and now we sort of have like split that by the revenue of the per all dates. So if we go just, yeah, the total is averaging around like 10,000 and stuff like that. So this is like a total metrics. Yeah, so this is like the data analytics, I guess. Is it 1-to-1, 101? Okay, cool. What I additionally would want to do is if I go to my scenario, generate a search. Add search, and then this would be, yeah, it's fine. I think it's fine for today. I don't want to go forward because the next idea is that, you know, like maybe I should implement something like the single visit is performing multiple searches. What I think I want to tune out or look into is these metrics somehow. I think they are very much related with the, you know, like order prediction. User type prediction. Oh, really? Well, I'm happy it was useful. Yeah, the Python as a language is not really that scary as a Python as the snake. So at least that is useful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is, yeah, I need to think a little bit more about that because what I wanted to do, this is a very, very simple example. Like initially I was thinking of that maybe we should do something. What was my example? So this one is sort of like for each day, we generate a number of visits. And then each visit would be creating an user, like the user would register, right? And then if the user have registered, then there is a chance to get the new like visits, but then there would be a chance to get some of the existing users coming back, right? So it's not like all the time you would having sort of like would be getting like a new users, And then it would just sort of like add the users, like a different type of the users based on, sort of like when the user would be coming in. But that's would be sort of like a building out like a user object, which sort of would have its own prediction things and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's out of the scope of this project, at least for the time being. I need to figure out, sort of need to polish this version and yeah, be done with that. Anyways, I think I'm done for this evening. Enormous One, thank you very much for being here tonight with me. It was a pleasure. I hope you find it useful, and maybe you will use that for something, maybe you will not. But what you see, or what you saw all of here, is a mix of the data engineering and data analytics. Very often what you are told to do is sort of like you need to write these queries to pull the data. And they say like, hey, I want to have searches, visits, orders. And you just pull this sort of like initial data set, and then they add all the additional ones. And then they do the analysis and kind of present this analysis to like, like your whoever wants to look at the data. And that's kind of it. And then you can do all the different sorts of analysis on the signals to identify, to identify the statistics and kind of like make a decisions, or to better understand your users. Like, like maybe in this case, it's not worth to working on the tablet at all because majority of the people is coming over the desktop. Yeah.